My name is Clara, and I'm 68 years old. This Christmas, I spent the entire day cooking dinner for my daughter only for her to look me in the eye and say, "You cooked rubbish, old woman." Before I tell you what happened next, please like this video, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from, because what I'm about to share might just break your heart. You know, Christmas has always been my favorite time of year. It's been that way for as long as I can remember. Even as a little girl, I used to watch my mother prepare our family dinner, the way she'd hum carols while rolling out dough, the way the whole house would smell like cinnamon and roasted meat and love. Pure, unfiltered love. That's what Christmas meant to me. Not the presents, not the decorations. The gathering. The warmth. The feeling that, for one day, everything in the world made sense because you were surrounded by the people you loved most. When I married my husband Williams, God rest his soul, we started our own Christmas tradition. I was 23 years old, and it was our first Christmas as a married couple. I remember standing in that tiny kitchen in our first apartment, terrified that I'd burn the turkey or oversalt the gravy. Williams came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and whispered, "Whatever you make will be perfect, because it's made with love." And you know what? He was right. That dinner wasn't perfect. The potatoes were lumpy, the Brussels sprouts were overdone, but we laughed, we ate, we held hands across that little table. And it was the most beautiful Christmas I'd ever had. Every year after that, I cooked Christmas dinner. When Melissa was born, I cooked with her in a high chair beside me, banging a wooden spoon against the tray. When she got older, she'd stand on a stool and help me stir the cranberry sauce. Williams would come in from setting the table and steal a piece of ham, and Melissa would giggle and call him a thief. Those were the days when my kitchen was full of noise and mess and life. Those were the days when I felt needed, wanted, loved. Williams passed away 7 years ago. A heart attack. Sudden. Cruel. One moment he was laughing at a television show, the next moment he was gone. And just like that, the noise in my house disappeared. The mess disappeared. Life. It just drained away. Melissa came to the funeral, of course. She cried. She held my hand. She promised she'd visit more often, that she'd bring little Ella by every weekend, that I wouldn't be alone. But life gets busy, doesn't it? People have jobs and responsibilities and their own lives to live. I understand that. I really do. The visits became monthly. Then, every few months. Then, just holidays. And even on holidays, they'd stay for an hour, maybe 2, before Melissa would check her watch and say, "Mom, we really need to get going. Traffic, too, you know." And I'd nod and smile and pack up leftovers for them to take home, and I'd stand at the door waving as their car pulled away, and then I'd go back inside to my empty, silent house. But I never stopped cooking Christmas dinner. Never. Because that tradition was bigger than me, it was William's. It was our life together. It was proof that love existed in this house once, that joy lived in these walls, that I mattered to someone. So every Christmas, I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, put on my apron, the same one I've had for 40 years. With faded red trim and a small burn mark on the pocket from when I got too close to the stove, and I'd cook. I'd cook like my family was still whole, like Williams was still here to steal pieces of ham. Like Melissa still stood on a stool beside me, asking a million questions. This year, I started planning Christmas dinner in November. I made lists. I checked them twice, just like the song says. I went through my old recipe cards, the ones with stains and smudges from decades of use, the ones written in my mother's handwriting and my grandmother's handwriting, handed down like precious heirlooms. I decided on the menu: roasted turkey with herb butter, homemade stuffing with chestnuts and sage, creamy mashed potatoes, honey-glazed carrots, green beans with almonds, cranberry sauce from scratch, Yorkshire puddings, and for dessert, my famous Christmas pudding with brandy butter, the same menu I've made for 45 years. The menu my family knows and loves. Or at least, I thought they loved. I spent a good portion of my pension on ingredients. You should have seen me at the grocery store, carefully selecting the biggest turkey, the freshest vegetables, the best butter. The cashier, a sweet young woman named Amy, who always remembers my name, rang everything up and said, "Must be expecting a big crowd, Clara." And I smiled and said, "Just my daughter and her family. But I want it to be perfect." She smiled back and said, "Lucky them. Lucky them." I held on to those words like a lifeline. Christmas Eve, I couldn't sleep. I was too excited. Too nervous. I kept going over the timeline in my head: when to put the turkey in, when to start the potatoes, when to make the gravy. At midnight, I got up and went downstairs to my kitchen. I stood there in my nightgown, in the dark, and I said a little prayer. I said, "Williams, if you can hear me, help me make this Christmas special. Help me bring our family together, even if you can't be here with us." I swear I felt his presence at that moment. A warmth. A comfort. Like he was standing right behind me, arms around my waist, whispering that everything would be perfect. Christmas morning, I woke up at 5 o'clock sharp. The house was still dark, still silent, but I felt alive with purpose. I made myself a cup of tea, put on my apron, and got to work. I prepped the turkey, rubbing it with butter and herbs, talking to it like an old friend. "You're going to be beautiful," I said. "You're going to make everyone smile." I chopped vegetables, humming carols under my breath. I rolled out dough for the Yorkshire puddings, my hands moving with muscle memory, with decades of practice. Every cut, every stir, every adjustment was an act of love. This wasn't just cooking. This was me pouring my entire heart onto a plate. By 8 in the morning, the house smelled like heaven. The turkey was in the oven, golden and promising. The potatoes were boiling. The cranberry sauce was simmering, filling the air with tart sweetness. I had Christmas music playing on the radio: Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, all the classics. I was smiling. Actually smiling. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a purpose, like I mattered, like I was doing something important. I'd invited Melissa, her husband David, and my 10-year-old granddaughter Ella. I'd called Melissa 2 weeks before Christmas and said, "Darling, I'd love to have you all over for Christmas dinner. I'll cook everything, just like always. Just bring yourselves." There was a pause on the other end of the line, long enough to make my stomach tighten with anxiety. Then Melissa sighed and said, "Mom, we're really busy this year, but, fine. We'll come." "What time?" I told her 2 o'clock. She said they'd try to be there by 3. I said that was fine, that was perfect, that I couldn't wait to see them. I set the table at noon. I used the good china, the set Williams and I got as a wedding gift. I polished the silverware until it gleamed. I folded napkins into little Christmas trees, the way I learned from a library book 30 years ago. I put out candles and a centerpiece of pine branches and holly. I stepped back and looked at that table, and my eyes filled with tears because it was beautiful. It looked like a table where love lived. It looked like a table where a family belonged. 3 o'clock came and went. No phone call, no text message. I checked my phone a dozen times to make sure it was working, that the ringer was on. I kept the food warm in the oven, checking it every 10 minutes to make sure nothing dried out. 3:30. 4 o'clock. I started to panic. Has something happened? Were they hurt? Should I call? But I didn't want to seem needy, didn't want to seem like the nagging old mother who can't let her daughter live her life. So, I waited. And waited. And waited. At 4:30, I heard a car in the driveway. I rushed to the window like a child on Christmas morning, my heart pounding with relief and excitement. They were here. Finally, my family was here. I smoothed down my dress, checked my hair in the hallway mirror, and opened the door with the biggest smile I could manage. Melissa got out of the car first, immediately pulling out her phone and typing something. She was dressed casually, jeans and a sweater. Like this was just another Tuesday, not Christmas, not a special family dinner. David climbed out next, barely glancing at me, already talking on his phone about some football match. She was the only one who ran up to me and hugged me. "Hi, Grandma," she said, and I held her tight, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, trying to memorize the feeling of her small arms around my waist. "You're late," I said, trying to keep my voice light, teasing. I was getting worried. Melissa didn't even look up from her phone. "Yeah, traffic was awful. Is dinner ready? We can't stay long. We have another thing tonight." Another thing. On Christmas Day, my hands were shaking as I led them inside, as I took their coats, as I ushered them into the dining room where my beautiful table waited. Ella gasped. "Grandma, it's so pretty," she said, and I wanted to cry from gratitude that at least someone noticed, that at least someone cared. "Sit, sit," I said, my voice too bright, too desperate. "Everything's ready. I'll bring it out." I rushed back to the kitchen, my heart racing. This was it. This was the moment I'd been planning for, dreaming about. I loaded up plates with turkey, stuffing, potatoes, vegetables, all of it steaming and perfect. I carried them out one by one, setting them in front of my family with trembling hands. "There's more in the kitchen if anyone wants seconds," I said, sitting down at the head of the table, in William's old spot. David didn't even put down his phone. He started eating with one hand, eyes glued to the screen. Melissa picked up her fork, poked at the turkey, and made a face. An actual face. Like she'd just tasted something rotten. And then she put down her fork, looked directly at me, with this expression of disdain, of actual disgust, and said, "You cooked rubbish, old woman. Who even eats this stuff anymore?" The room went silent. Even David looked up from his phone. Ella's eyes went wide. And I just sat there, frozen, like someone had dumped ice water over my head. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stared at my daughter, at this woman I'd given birth to, nursed, raised, sacrificed for, and I couldn't understand how those words had come out of her mouth. "Melissa," David started, but she cut him off. "What? I'm just being honest. Mom, this is the same meal you've made every single year since I was a kid. It's boring. It's old-fashioned. We eat healthy, now, organic, plant-based. This is all just heavy, greasy, outdated food. No offense. No offense." She said, "No offense," like that erased the knife she'd just plunged into my chest. I spent all day cooking this," I whispered, and I hated how weak my voice sounded, how pathetic. "I used your father's recipes. I used the best ingredients. I thought you'd like it." Melissa shrugged. "Well, you thought wrong. Look, we appreciate the effort, Mom, but maybe next year you could just order something? There are great catering services now. You don't need to kill yourself cooking for hours." Kill myself. That's what she thought I was doing. Killing myself. Not loving them. Not honoring tradition. Not keeping their father's memory alive. Just wasting my time on something worthless. I looked at Ella, and she looked back at me with these big, sad eyes. She reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. "I think it's delicious, Grandma," she whispered, but her voice was so small, so powerless against her mother's cruelty. David laughed. Actually laughed. An awkward, uncomfortable laugh, but a laugh, nonetheless. "Come on, Clara," he said, "don't take it personally. Melissa's just. You know how she is. Always speaking her mind. Always speaking her mind. What a convenient excuse for being heartless." I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to. I'll be right back." I walked to the kitchen, closed the door behind me, and pressed my back against it, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. And then the tears came. Silent, streaming tears that I couldn't stop. I put my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud, to keep them from hearing me break apart in the next room. 45 years. 45 years of cooking Christmas dinner. Of waking up early, of shopping carefully, of preparing every dish with love and care. 45 years of setting beautiful tables and lighting candles and creating memories. And it was all rubbish. I was rubbish. An old woman who didn't know any better, who was wasting everyone's time with her outdated, boring food. I don't know how long I sat there on the kitchen floor. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20. Eventually, I heard Melissa's voice from the dining room. Mom? Are you coming back? We really need to get going soon. I pulled myself up, wiped my face, and took a deep breath. When I walked back into the dining room, Melissa was back on her phone. David was watching something on his. Ella had eaten everything on her plate and was sitting quietly, looking miserable. I started clearing the dishes, moving like a robot, not speaking. We're going to head out, Melissa announced, standing up and grabbing her purse. Thanks for, whatever. Merry Christmas. She kissed the air near my cheek, not actually touching me. David nodded at me and headed for the door. Ella hugged me tight and whispered, I'm sorry, Grandma. It's not your fault, sweetheart, I whispered back, kissing the top of her head. It's not your fault at all. And then they were gone. I stood at the door, watching their car disappear down the street, and then I closed the door and turned around to face my empty house. My silent house. My house is full of rejected food and shattered traditions and broken love. I walked back to the dining room and looked at the table. All that beautiful food, barely touched. Hours of work. Decades of recipes. A lifetime of love. Rubbish. I picked up a plate and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, and the sound was so satisfying that I picked up another one and threw it too, and another. And another. I destroyed my own beautiful table setting, screaming words I didn't even know I had in me, releasing all the pain and anger and humiliation that had been building for years. When I finally stopped, when there was nothing left to break, I sank into a chair and stared at the mess I'd made. And then, in the silence, in the wreckage, something shifted inside me. Something cold and hard and certain. I whispered to the empty room, to Williams's ghost, to myself, you called my love rubbish, but you'll soon learn what real loss feels like. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and all I could see was Melissa's face when she said those words. You cooked rubbish, old woman. The disdain. The dismissal. The complete lack of love or respect or gratitude. I'd spent my entire adult life putting everyone else first. I'd been a devoted wife, a devoted mother, a devoted grandmother. I'd sacrificed my dreams, my career ambitions, my own identity to take care of my family, and this was how it ended? Being called an old woman who cooked rubbish? No. No, I decided. This wasn't how it would end. This was where it changed. The next morning, I woke up early again, but this time, not to cook. I made myself a strong cup of coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and made a list. Not a grocery list. Not a recipe list. A life list. Things I was going to do for myself. Changes I was going to make. I was done being a doormat. I was done being dismissed and disrespected. I was done waiting for crumbs of affection from people who clearly didn't value me. First item on my list, call Martha. Martha has been my best friend for 30 years. She's a widow too, and she's got a spine of steel. She doesn't take nonsense from anyone, and I've always admired that about her. When I called her that morning and told her what happened, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Clara, I love you, but I've been waiting for you to wake up for years. That daughter of yours has been treating you like hired help since Williams died, and you've let her. So, what are you going to do about it? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm done being treated like this. Good, Martha said firmly. Tomorrow morning, you and I are going to the bank. And then we're going to see my lawyer. It's time you took control of your own life. So that's what we did. The next morning, Martha picked me up in her little red car, and we drove to my bank. I walked up to the counter with my head held high and asked to speak to someone about my accounts. A young man named Kevin took us into a small office, and I explained what I needed. I wanted to understand exactly how much money I had, where it was, and what my options were. Kevin pulled up my accounts on his computer and started going through everything with me. My pension. My savings. Williams's life insurance that I'd barely touched. When he showed me the total, I actually gasped. I'd been living so frugally, so carefully, pinching pennies and denying myself everything, that I hadn't realized I actually had quite a comfortable nest egg. Not rich, but more than enough to live well for the rest of my life. Mrs. Harrison, Kevin said gently, you've been very responsible with your money. You could afford to enjoy yourself more. Travel. Hobbies. Whatever makes you happy. Whatever makes me happy. What a concept. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd asked myself what would make me happy. From the bank, Martha drove me to her lawyer's office. His name was Mr. Patterson, and he was an older gentleman with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Martha had called ahead and explained the situation, so he was ready for us. Mrs. Harrison, he said, I understand you want to update your will. Yes, I said, and my voice was steady. Strong. I want to make some changes. I made my current will 10 years ago, shortly after Williams died. Everything was left to Melissa. The house, the money, everything. Because she was my daughter, and that's what you do, right? You leave everything to your children. But as I sat in Mr. Patterson's office, I realized something: inheritance isn't a right. It's a gift. And you don't give gifts to people who treat you like rubbish. I want to remove my daughter as the primary beneficiary, I told him. I want to leave the house and half my savings to my granddaughter Ella, in a trust that she can access when she turns 25. I want to leave a quarter of my savings to the local women's shelter. And I want to leave the remaining quarter to St. Mary's Senior Center. Mr. Patterson wrote everything down, then looked at me over his glasses. And your daughter? Should I include a token amount to avoid any legal challenges? I thought about it. Leave her $1, I said. And a letter explaining why. Would you like help drafting that letter? No, I said firmly. I'll write it myself. Martha squeezed my hand under the table, and I could feel her pride radiating toward me. We spent the next hour going through the paperwork, making everything official. When we were done, Mr. Patterson stood and shook my hand. Mrs. Harrison, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I can always tell when someone is making the right decision. You're doing the right thing. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty about it. I nodded, and for the first time in days, I felt something close to peace. That afternoon, Martha took me out to lunch. Not just any lunch, a fancy lunch at a restaurant I'd always wanted to try but thought was too expensive, too extravagant. We ordered wine. We ordered appetizers and entrees and dessert. We laughed and talked for hours. And when the bill came, I paid it without flinching, without guilt. Because I could afford it. Because I deserved it. What's next? Martha asked as we walked back to her car. Hair salon, I said decisively. I've been wearing my hair the same way for 20 years because Williams liked it. But Williams is gone, and I'm still here. I want something different. Something that makes me feel good. So we went to Martha's salon, and I let the stylist do whatever she thought would look good. She cut off 6 inches, added layers, and gave me some subtle highlights. When she spun me around to look in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself at first. I looked younger, lighter, free. Clara, Martha said, tears in her eyes, you look absolutely beautiful. I stared at my reflection and smiled. I do, don't I? Over the next few days, I went on a rampage of self-care. I cleaned out my closet and donated all the frumpy, outdated clothes I'd been holding onto. I went shopping and bought myself new outfits, clothes that actually fit, that were stylish, that made me feel attractive and confident. I bought new shoes, new jewelry. I even bought myself a smartphone to replace my ancient flip phone. I called the local senior center and asked about volunteer opportunities. The coordinator, a lovely woman named Patricia, was thrilled to hear from me. "We desperately need volunteers for our meal program," she said. "We serve lunch to seniors who can't cook for themselves anymore. Would you be interested?" Would I be interested? In cooking for people who would actually appreciate it? Who would thank me instead of insulting me? "Yes," I said. "When can I start?" "Tomorrow, if you're available." "I'll be there." And I was. I showed up at St. Mary's Senior Center at 9 in the morning, ready to work. Patricia introduced me to the kitchen staff and the other volunteers, and we spent the morning preparing lunch for 60 seniors. It was different from cooking Christmas dinner in my quiet house. There was noise and chaos and laughter. People bumped into each other, made jokes, sang along to the radio. And when we served the food, the seniors who came through the line looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you." They said, "This looks delicious." They said, "God bless you." I went home that day exhausted and happier than I'd been in years. 1 week after Christmas, my phone rang. "Melissa." My stomach immediately tensed, but I answered it. "Hello?" "Hi, Mom." Her voice was sweet. Too sweet. The voice she uses when she wants something. "How are you?" "I'm fine." "Good, good. Listen, I wanted to apologize for what I said on Christmas. I was stressed, and I shouldn't have taken it out on you. Your dinner was fine. Really? Fine. Not delicious. Not wonderful. Not made with love, just fine." "I accept your apology," I said, my voice neutral. "Great. So, listen, I'm calling because David and I have this amazing business opportunity. It's a franchise thing, completely low risk, guaranteed returns. But we need to invest $30,000 to get started. I was wondering if you could help us out? Just as a loan, of course. We'd pay you back within a year." There it was. The real reason for the call. Not genuine remorse, not actual love. Just money. $30,000, I repeated. "I know it's a lot, but Mom, this could really set us up for life. And you've got Dad's life insurance just sitting there, you don't need it all, right? You live simply. You don't spend much. This would be a really good investment for you too." My blood started to boil. She had no idea what I spent money on, no idea what my life was like, because she never asked. She never visited. She never called except when she wanted something. "Come over for tea tomorrow afternoon," I said. 2 o'clock. "We'll discuss it." "Really? Oh, Mom, thank you. You're the best. I'll see you tomorrow." She hung up, and I stood there holding my phone, shaking with anger and something else, something that felt like power. The next morning, I baked. Not an elaborate Christmas dinner. Just a simple tea cake, Williams's favorite recipe. I set out my good china, made a pot of strong tea, and then I went to my office and gathered everything I needed. Bank statements. The new will. And receipts. So many receipts. I'd kept every single receipt from every Christmas dinner I'd ever made. It started as a way to track my spending, to make sure I was being responsible with money. But over the years, it became something else. A record. Proof of my love, documented in ink and paper. I spread them all out on the dining room table. 45 years worth of receipts, 45 years of turkeys and vegetables and butter and flour. 45 years of my pension money, my savings, my life, spent making sure my family had a beautiful Christmas. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I answered it with a smile. "Hello, Melissa. Come in." She looked surprised to see me. "Mom, you look different. Did you do something to your hair?" I did, I said. Do you like it? She shrugged. It's fine. Makes you look younger, I guess. I led her into the dining room, where I'd set out tea and cake. Her eyes went immediately to the papers spread across the table. What's all this? Sit down, I said, pouring tea into her cup. Have some cake. It was your father's favorite. She sat. But she didn't touch the cake. She was staring at the receipts. Mom, what is all this? I sat down across from her, took a sip of my tea, and said calmly, those are receipts from every Christmas dinner I've cooked for this family since you were born. 45 years worth. I thought you might be interested to see exactly how much rubbish I've been cooking all these years. Her face went pale. Mom. No, let me finish. I pulled out a calculator and a notepad. I did the math last night. Over 45 years, accounting for inflation, I've spent approximately $47,000 on Christmas dinners alone. That doesn't include Thanksgiving, Easters, birthdays, or the countless other meals I've cooked when you and your family have deigned to visit me. Just Christmas. $47,000 of what you called rubbish. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. My voice was sharp now, all the pain and anger of the past year bleeding through. You meant exactly what you said. You looked at my food, at my love, at my effort, and you called it rubbish. You called me an old woman. Well, you're right about one thing, I am an old woman. But I'm an old woman who just spent the last week making some very important decisions. I pushed the new will across the table to her. This is my updated will. I thought you should know about it, since it concerns you. She picked it up with shaking hands and started reading. I watched as her face went from pale to red, as her eyes widened, as her mouth fell open. You're leaving me $1? $1? And the rest goes to charity and Ella? That's correct. You can't do this. I'm your daughter. You were my daughter, I said, and my voice was ice. My daughter wouldn't have treated me the way you did. My daughter wouldn't have called my cooking rubbish. My daughter wouldn't have only called me when she needed money. That's not fair. I've been busy. For 7 years? You've been too busy, for 7 years, to visit your widowed mother? To call her, just to see how she's doing? To show even the smallest bit of gratitude or love? I leaned forward, and I saw her flinch. You want $30,000 for a business opportunity. That's interesting, because according to these receipts, I've already invested $47,000 in you in making sure you had beautiful memories, beautiful Christmases, a beautiful childhood. And you repaid me by calling it rubbish. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. Mom, please. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Don't do this. Don't punish me like this. I'm not punishing you, Melissa. I'm simply making a choice about my own life, my own money. The same way you made a choice when you walked into my house on Christmas Day and humiliated me. I didn't mean to humiliate you. But you did. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. You called my cooking rubbish. Well, I call your greed disgusting. Now, get out of my house. She stood up, knocking her chair backward. You're crazy. You're a bitter, crazy old woman, and when I tell everyone what you've done, tell whoever you want, I said calmly. Tell them how your mother spent 45 years cooking for you, and you repaid her by calling her food rubbish. Tell them how you only called her when you needed money. Tell them whatever you want, I'm done caring what you think of me. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, then stopped and turned back. You know what? You're going to die alone. Completely alone. And you'll deserve it. Those words should have hurt me. A week ago, they would have destroyed me, but now they just bounced off me like rain off an umbrella. If being alone means being free from your cruelty, then I'll die alone and happy. Get out, Melissa. She left, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I stood there for a moment, breathing hard, and then I started laughing. Actual, genuine laughter. Because I'd done it. I stood up for myself. I'd said everything I'd wanted to say, I'd taken back my power. I walked back to the dining room, gathered up all those receipts, and threw them in the fireplace. I watched them burn, watched 45 years of proof turn to ash, and I felt lighter than I had in decades. The next few days were interesting. Melissa, true to her word, started spreading rumors. She called other family members, old friends, anyone who would listen, and told them I was losing my mind. She said I was showing signs of dementia, that I'd become paranoid and hostile, that I needed to be put in a home for my own safety. Some people believed her. Some people called me, concerned, asking if I was okay. I handled each call with grace and honesty. I'm perfectly fine, I told them. I recently updated my will, and my daughter is upset about it. But I assure you, I'm in full control of my faculties. I invited a few of them over for tea, let them see for themselves that I was healthy and happy and more clear-headed than I'd been in years. But I also did something else. I called my doctor, Dr. Morrison, and asked him for a complete cognitive evaluation. He was puzzled. I'd just had my annual checkup 2 months earlier and everything was fine, but he agreed. I went in, did all the tests, answered all the questions, and he confirmed what I already knew. I was perfectly healthy, both physically and mentally. Clara, he said, signing the evaluation report, your mind is as sharp as ever. Actually, sharper than a lot of people half your age. What's this about? Insurance, I said. Just making sure I have documentation that I'm of sound mind. He handed me the report with a knowing smile. Family trouble? You could say that. Well, you keep doing whatever you're doing. You seem happier than I've seen you in a long time. Armed with my doctor's evaluation and Mr. Patterson's assurance that my will was completely legal and ironclad, I decided to take one more step. I called Patricia at the senior center and told her I wanted to make a donation, a significant donation. How significant are we talking? She asked. $50,000, I said. To expand your meal program. To help more seniors who can't cook for themselves. In memory of my late husband, Williams Harrison. Patricia was speechless for a moment. Then, she started crying. Clara, that's incredibly generous. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The senior center held a small ceremony to announce the donation. They invited local media, and suddenly I was being interviewed by reporters, having my picture taken, being called a local hero and a community pillar. The story ran in the newspaper and on the evening news. People I hadn't heard from in years reached out to congratulate me. The mayor sent me a thank you letter. And Melissa saw all of it. She saw me on the news, smiling and happy, surrounded by people who appreciated me. She saw the article about my generous donation to combat senior hunger. She saw that I wasn't some crazy old woman losing her mind. I was a woman taking control of her life and using her resources to help others. 3 days after the ceremony, I got a letter in the mail. My hands trembled as I opened it, not from fear, but from a strange mixture of anticipation and sadness. I sat down at my kitchen table, made myself a cup of tea, and unfolded the pages. The letter was 4 pages long, handwritten, and I could see places where the ink had smudged, like tears had fallen on the paper. Dear Mom. I don't know where to start. I've written this letter a dozen times and thrown it away a dozen times because nothing I say feels adequate. But I need to try. I was wrong. Not just wrong about what I said on Christmas Day, but wrong about so much more. I've been wrong for years, and I was too selfish, too blind, too caught up in my own life to see it. When I saw you on the news, looking so happy and confident, surrounded by people who clearly love and respect you, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time: shame. Real, deep shame. Because I realized that I haven't made you feel loved or respected in years, maybe ever, if I'm being completely honest with myself. I've spent the last week thinking about everything. About Dad's funeral, when I promised I'd visit more and then didn't. About all the times you invited me over, and I made excuses. About all the Christmases when you cooked for hours and I barely stayed long enough to eat. About how I always called when I needed something babysitting, money, advice, but never just to say hi, to ask how you were doing, to tell you, I loved you. What I said on Christmas Day was unforgivable. I know that. You cooked rubbish, old woman. I can't believe those words came out of my mouth. I can't believe I hurt you like that. And the worst part? It wasn't even true. Your food has never been rubbish. Your food was always made with love, and I knew that, and I said it anyway, because I was stressed and tired and I took it out on the one person who has always been there for me. But here's the thing I'm really ashamed of, Mom, I didn't just hurt you on Christmas Day. I've been hurting you for years with my neglect, my selfishness, my taking you for granted. You were always there when I needed you, when Ella was born and I didn't know what I was doing, when David lost his job and we were struggling, when I was depressed and couldn't get out of bed. You were there. Always. And I repaid you by treating you like hired help. Like someone who existed to serve me and had no value beyond that. I saw the newspaper article about your donation to the senior center. $50,000. I had no idea you had that kind of money, Mom. And you know why? Because I never asked. I never asked about your life, your finances, your dreams, your needs. I just assumed you were fine, that you didn't need anything from me except for me to show up occasionally and let you cook for us. I called Aunt Martha yesterday. She told me everything. About how you've been volunteering at the senior center, about how you've been making new friends. About how you've been living your life for yourself instead of waiting around for me to grace you with my presence. She said, you seem happier than you've been in years. And that broke my heart, Mom, because it meant that I was making you unhappy. My presence in your life, or lack thereof, was making you miserable. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to change your will back, and honestly, I don't think you should. You're right, I don't deserve your money. I didn't earn it through love or respect or devotion. I only wanted it because I'm greedy and entitled. What I lost that day isn't your cooking, Mom. It's not your money, it's not even your will or your house. What I lost is so much more valuable than any of that. I lost your love. I lost your trust. I lost my mother, and it's my own fault. Ella asks about you every day. She wants to see you. She tells me she misses your cooking, your hugs, the way you always listen to her stories. She's the only one in our family who knew how to appreciate you, and she's 10 years old. What does that say about me? About David? About how we behaved? I don't know if there's any way to fix this. I don't know if you even want me to try. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not sorry because I'm losing an inheritance, but sorry because I hurt someone I love. Because I took advantage of your kindness for years. Because I forgot that you're not just my mother, you're a person, with feelings, and needs, and worth that exists completely separate from your relationship to me. I love you, Mom. I know I haven't shown it, but I do. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you, whether you want me to or not. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserve better than what I've given you. I hope someday you can forgive me. But if you can't, I understand. Love. Melissa. I read the letter 3 times, and each time, my emotions shifted and changed like clouds moving across the sky. Anger. Sadness. Grief for what we'd lost. Hope for what we might rebuild. Doubt about whether her words were genuine or just another manipulation. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my kitchen drawer, the one where I keep important documents. Then I sat at my table for a long time, staring out the window at the winter afternoon, thinking. The old Clara would have called Melissa immediately. Would have forgiven her right away, would have invited her over for dinner, would have gone back to the way things were before. But I wasn't the old Clara anymore, I was someone different. Someone stronger. Someone who had learned, finally, at 68 years old, that love without respect is not love at all. That family obligations go both ways. That I had value as a person, not just as a mother, or a cook, or a source of money. I didn't call Melissa that day. Or the next day, or the day after that. But 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, I did something different. I picked up my phone and called her. She answered on the first ring, her voice breathless with hope and fear. "Mom." "Hello, Melissa," I said calmly. "I got your letter." "Oh. Oh God. Mom, I meant every word." "Let me speak." I interrupted, and she went silent immediately. "I've thought a lot about what you wrote. I believe that you're sorry. I believe that you've realized you hurt me. But I need you to understand something. I'm not going back to the way things were. That Clara is gone. She died on Christmas Day when you called her cooking rubbish." "Mom. I'm not finished. I don't know if we can rebuild our relationship. I honestly don't know if I want to. But if we're going to try, it has to be on completely different terms. You don't get to call me only when you need something, you don't get to show up late and distracted when you do visit. You don't get to dismiss my feelings, or my efforts, or my worth. If you want to be part of my life, you have to earn that privilege. Do you understand?" There was a long pause. Then, in a small voice, "Yes, I understand." "Good. Then here's what's going to happen. Once a month, if you want, you can come over for dinner. Just you and Ella. Not David. This is about rebuilding our relationship, mother and daughter. You arrive on time. You put your phone away. You engage in actual conversation. You help with the dishes. And most importantly, you treat me with respect. If you can do that, if you can show me over time that you truly value me as a person and not just as someone who serves a function in your life, then maybe we can find our way back to each other. But it will take time. Months. Maybe years. And I won't tolerate any backsliding, any return to old patterns. One strike and you're out. Are we clear?" Another long pause. I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. "We're clear," she whispered. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for giving me a chance." "I'm not doing it for you," I said honestly. "I'm doing it for Ella, because she deserves to have a grandmother in her life. And I'm doing it for me, because I need to know if reconciliation is possible. But Melissa, I need you to hear this. I'm happy now. Truly happy, for the first time in years. I have friends. I have a purpose. I have a life that doesn't revolve around waiting for you to need me. So, if this doesn't work out, if you can't meet these very simple requirements, I will be okay. Better than okay. I will be fine. Because I've learned that I don't need you to be happy. I've learned that my worth doesn't depend on whether my daughter loves me or not." She was sobbing now, really sobbing. "I understand. I'll do better. I promise I'll do better." "We'll see," I said. "First dinner is next Saturday at 6 o'clock. Don't be late." I hung up before she could respond, and I sat there feeling. I'm not sure what I felt. Not triumphant, exactly. Not joyful. Just calm, clear. Like I'd finally, after years of confusion and pain, found solid ground to stand on. The following Saturday, at exactly 6 o'clock, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Melissa and Ella standing there, right on time. Melissa looked nervous, like a teenager on a first date. Ella looked excited. "Hi, Grandma," she said, hugging me tight. "Hello, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head. Then I looked at Melissa. "Come in." Dinner that night was simple. Just roast chicken, roasted vegetables, and a salad. Nothing elaborate. Nothing that took all day. Because I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I wasn't trying to earn love through food. I was just cooking a meal and sharing it with people who, hopefully, would appreciate it. And they did. Ella talked non-stop about school and her friends and a book she was reading. Melissa listened to her, then asked me questions about my volunteering at the senior center, about my new friends, about my life. Real questions. Interesting questions. And when I answered, she actually listened, maintained eye contact, engaged with what I was saying. After dinner, Melissa insisted on helping with the dishes. We stood side by side at the sink, her washing and me drying, and it felt strange. Awkward. Like we were two people who used to know each other well but had become strangers. But it also felt like a start, a tiny seed of something that might, with time and care, grow into something real. As they were leaving, Melissa turned to me at the door and said, "Thank you for tonight, Mom, for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw Williams in her face. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her jaw. My daughter. My complicated, flawed, human daughter. "None of us deserve anything," I said quietly. "But sometimes we get grace anyway. Don't waste it." "I won't," she promised. Over the next few months, we continued those monthly dinners. Some were better than others. Sometimes, Melissa slipped into old patterns, checked her phone too much, gave distracted answers, seemed impatient to leave. And each time, I called her on it. Kindly but firmly. "Put the phone away, please. I asked you a question. I'd appreciate an answer. If you need to leave, then leave, but don't stay here half present." And slowly, things started to change. She got better at being present. At listening. At asking questions, at showing genuine interest in my life. She started calling me midweek, just to chat. She invited me to Ella's school play. She sent me articles she thought I'd find interesting. I didn't change my will. I told her that clearly. "This isn't about earning back your inheritance," I said. "This is about building a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine affection. The will stays as it is. If that's a problem for you, tell me now." "It's not a problem," she said, and I believed her. Because by that point, several months into our new arrangement, I could see that something had actually shifted in her. She was different. More thoughtful, more aware. More human. But I was different too. I wasn't the same desperate, needy mother who had cooked elaborate Christmas dinners hoping to buy love with food. I had built a life for myself. I spent 2 mornings a week at the senior center, cooking and serving meals to people who appreciated every bite. I'd joined a book club with Martha and several other women from the center. I'd started taking watercolor painting classes, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for when I was busy taking care of everyone else. I'd even gone on a short trip with Martha to the seaside, my first vacation in a decade. I was happy. Genuinely, independently happy. And that happiness didn't depend on whether Melissa called or visited. It was mine, built from my own choices, my own interests, my own life. One evening in late October, almost a year after that terrible Christmas, Melissa came over for our monthly dinner. It was just the two of us, this time Ella was at a friend's house. We cooked together, something we'd started doing recently. She chopped vegetables while I prepared the chicken, and we worked in comfortable silence, something that would have been impossible a year ago. As we sat down to eat, Melissa looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. Here it comes, I thought. Whatever this is, whatever new crisis or need or problem, what is it? "I've been seeing a therapist," she said. "Since February. I didn't tell you because I don't know. I guess I was embarrassed. But I've been going every week, and we've been talking a lot about my relationship with you, about how I treated you. About why I treated you that way." I put down my fork. "Okay." She helped me understand something I should have figured out on my own. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. "After Dad died, I was so angry. So angry that he left us, left you, left me. But I couldn't be angry at him, he was dead, he was in the grieving process, He was supposed to be perfect in death. So I redirected all that anger at you. I punished you for still being alive when he wasn't. I punished you for needing me, for being lonely, for reminding me of everything we'd lost. And the more you tried to connect with me, the more I pulled away, because every interaction reminded me of Dad's absence. I sat very still, absorbing this. Go on. And then, as time passed, it became a habit. Treating you badly, taking you for granted, it wasn't about Dad anymore, it was just who I had become. A person who used people. A person who only valued others for what they could give me. My therapist asked me if I even liked the person I'd become, and I realized I didn't. I hated myself. And I think, subconsciously, I was trying to make you hate me too. The tears were streaming down her face now. And then, on Christmas Day, I said those terrible things, and you looked at me with such pain and disappointment, and I realized I'd gotten what I wanted. You finally saw me for who I really was. And it was the worst feeling in the world. I reached across the table and took her hand. My own eyes were wet now. Melissa. Let me finish, please. I need to say this. She squeezed my hand. Losing your love, losing my place in your will, having to earn back your respect, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to look at myself honestly. To ask myself who I wanted to be. To actually do the work of becoming a better person, not just apologizing and then going back to old patterns. She took a shaky breath. I know I hurt you terribly. I know I wasted years of time we could have spent actually connecting. I know I missed out on knowing you as a person, not just as my mother, and I can never get that time back. But Mom, I want you to know, I see you now. I see how strong you are. How resilient. How you built this whole beautiful life for yourself after Dad died, after I abandoned you. I see your kindness in how you volunteer at the senior center. I see your creativity in your paintings. I see your wisdom in the choices you've made. And I'm so proud to be your daughter, even though I don't deserve the title. I was crying openly now. Melissa, we've both made mistakes. I enabled your behavior for too long. I didn't stand up for myself. I tried to buy love with food and service instead of demanding mutual respect. No, she said firmly. Don't do that. Don't take responsibility for my failures, you loved me the best way you knew how. I rejected that love because I was selfish and broken. That's on me, not you. We sat there, holding hands across the table, both of us crying, both of us finally being honest with each other in a way we'd never been before. And in that moment, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness that had been happening gradually over the months, but something deeper. Understanding. Acceptance. The beginning of real healing. I'm proud of you, I said finally. For doing the work. For going to therapy, for being honest with yourself. That takes courage. She laughed through her tears. I learned it from you. Watching you transform yourself this past year, watching you claim your own life, that showed me it's never too late to change. We finished dinner and cleaned up together, and then we sat in my living room with tea, and she asked if she could see some of my paintings. I'd been hesitant to show them to anyone, they were just amateur watercolors, nothing special, but I got out my portfolio and let her look through them. She went through each one slowly, really looking. Mom, these are beautiful, she said, and I could tell she meant it. This one of the beaches, is that from your trip with Martha? Yes, I said. We went in April. It was wonderful. I'm glad you went. I'm glad you're doing things for yourself. She looked up at me, and I'm glad you didn't wait for me to give you permission to be happy. As she was leaving that night, she hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. Not because you cook for me, or because you might leave me money someday. Just because you're you. Because you're smart and strong and kind, and you've shown me what it looks like to have dignity and self-respect. I love you too, sweetheart, I said. And I meant it. Not the desperate, needy love of a mother who would tolerate anything to keep her child close. But a healthier love, A love that included boundaries and expectations and mutual respect. Now, as I sit here telling you this story almost a year later, I want to tell you how this Christmas went, because that's what you're wondering, isn't it? Whether we've come full circle, whether the ending is happy. This Christmas, I didn't cook an elaborate dinner, I didn't spend days preparing, I didn't use my pension money to buy the finest ingredients. Instead, I spent Christmas morning at St. Mary's Senior Center, helping serve Christmas lunch to 60 seniors who don't have family or can't cook for themselves. Martha was there. Patricia was there. Other volunteers I've become friends with over the past year were there. And you know what? Melissa and Ella showed up too. Melissa had called me 2 weeks before Christmas and asked if she could volunteer with me, if she could help serve meals, if she could be part of this new tradition I'd created. So there we were. Mother and daughter and granddaughter, side by side in hairnets and aprons, serving turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes to people who looked at us with such gratitude, such joy. An elderly man named George told me it was the best Christmas dinner he'd had in 20 years. A woman named Dorothy held my hand and said, "Bless you, dear. Bless you for caring about us old folks." Old folks. Like me. Because I am old. I'm 69 years old now, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But being old doesn't mean being worthless. It doesn't mean being rubbish. It doesn't mean accepting disrespect or settling for crumbs of affection. After the lunch service, Melissa, Ella, and I went back to my house. We made simple sandwiches and ate them at my kitchen table. No fancy china, no elaborate recipes. Just 3 women, 3 generations, talking and laughing and being present with each other. Before they left, Ella handed me a card she'd made. Inside, in her careful 10-year-old handwriting, she'd written, "Dear Grandma, thank you for teaching me that it's never too late to be brave. I love you. Merry Christmas." And Melissa handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a necklace with a pendant that said, "Strength." "I saw this and thought of you," she said. "For showing me what real strength looks like." I'm wearing that necklace now as I tell you this story. So, here's what I want you to understand: this isn't a fairy tale where everything is suddenly perfect. Melissa and I still have complicated moments. We still stumble sometimes. The relationship is still being rebuilt, piece by careful piece. But it's real now. It's based on honesty and respect and genuine affection, not obligation or guilt or manipulation. And more importantly, my happiness doesn't depend on her. That's the real victory. That's the real strength. Not that I got my daughter back, but that I got myself back. To every mother watching this, to every person who's been taken for granted, dismissed, called rubbish by the people they love, you don't have to accept that treatment. You don't have to keep giving and giving to people who don't appreciate what you're offering. You don't have to light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Love yourself first. Respect yourself first. Build a life that brings you joy, regardless of whether the people you love choose to be part of it. Set boundaries. Demand respect. Walk away from people who treat you as less than you are, and if they come back, if they do the work and prove they've changed, maybe you can let them back in, but only on your terms. Only with clear expectations and consequences. I spent 67 years of my life putting everyone else first. Always the mother, always the wife, always the caregiver. And you know what? That's a noble role. There's nothing wrong with caring for others, with showing love through service. But it can't be one-sided. It can't be demanded without gratitude. It can't be taken for granted. This Christmas, I cooked again, but this time, for strangers who called me family, for people who saw me, who valued me, who appreciated what I had to offer. And that felt better than any Christmas dinner I'd cooked in my own dining room, waiting and hoping for approval that never came. Don't wait as long as I did to realize your worth. Don't waste years of your life trying to earn love from people who won't give it. Don't accept being called rubbish when you know you're gold. You deserve respect. You deserve appreciation. You deserve love that's freely given, not grudgingly offered. And if you're not getting that from the people in your life, then walk away. Build something new. Create a life that honors who you are, not who others want you to be. It's never too late. I'm 69 years old, and I'm just now figuring out how to live for myself. But better late than never. Better now than never. So if you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you have a Melissa in your life who takes and never gives back, who calls your love rubbish, who makes you feel small and worthless, please hear me. You are not small, you are not worthless. You are not rubbish. You are strong. You are valuable. You are enough, exactly as you are. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to stop giving to people who don't appreciate what you're offering. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to love yourself first. That's my Christmas miracle. Not that my daughter apologized, not that we're rebuilding our relationship. But I finally, after 68 years on this earth, learned to value myself. I learned to see my own worth. I learned that I deserve respect and kindness and love, and I don't have to beg for it or buy it or earn it through endless service. I deserve it simply because I exist. Because I'm human. Because I matter. And so do you. So please, wherever you are, whoever you are, don't let anyone make you feel small for giving your love. But also, don't give your love to people who call it rubbish. Save it for the ones who treasure it. Save it for the ones who give it back. And most importantly, save some of it for yourself. Because you deserve it. You really, truly deserve it. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And here's to all of us finding the courage to respect ourselves first and trusting that the right people will follow. My name is Clara. I'm 69 years old. And I finally know my worth. Thank you for listening to my story.